Okay, I guess we'll start.
Good, okay.
Item one, call to order tonight's, this is August Parks and Recreation meeting. Call to order. George, can you call the roll for us, please?
Absolutely. Wade Pollock,
Here?
Peter Lake is not here. Jonathan Gifford. Here. Bill Postic.
Here.
And Caitlin Foy is not here.
Item 4, agenda 4.1, consider approving the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
We need to go in.
Did I forget that? I'm sorry. Oh my gosh.
Moment of
Oh,
silence.
moment, I'm sorry. We
Pledge
need
of allegiance.
to do a moment of silence. A moment of, where were they? A moment of silence, and please keep the people that recently were in the flood in your thoughts and prayers. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4.1, consider approving the agenda. A motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
It's approved.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye. Motion is approved. Item 5, public comment for agenda items only. Is there any public comment on the agenda items? Item 6.1, consider approving the minutes from June 2nd meeting, Park and Recreation.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. All those not, the motion's approved. Reports, 7.1, Public Works update, Mr. Sharretts.
Sure. Just a few quick things. As you have seen, you've been over at Drexel Lodge. We've been working on the bocce ball courts. That is a substantial project, but it's chugging along. So the water piping is in underneath. Everything's been leveled. We've started putting the stone in, and again, we're still targeting the sometime in September being completed.
Yeah, they've done a heck of a job. They had to move because when we laid it out, I think the arborist said that, it might damage the roots, so they moved it.
Yeah, so we're out of the drip line on both of them. So, we're good where we are. And again, the ground turned out to not be quite the level that we thought it was. So that's why if you go there and it looks like it's tilted, it's not. It's the ground is tilted and it's very, very, very flat.
They've done a heck of a job. They've worked really hard. It looks beautiful. It's going to be really nice.
So it's coming
Is
along.
that lined up with the laser?
We did actually line it up with a laser. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
The bleachers for Gable Field finally came in. So we built the bases for where the bleachers went. The bleachers were then assembled and installed. These are the ones that are larger. They've got double planked steps on them, which are safer. They've got the current code requirement of the fence around the back, so that when you're sitting on the back, it's safer than the old ones. So they're installed now. If you look, you're going to see the framing on the bottom. You can still see the wood through it. We're going to be putting stone on that now that they've assembled them, and it'll be a nice clean look underneath the things. The old ones, they were a 5-row bleacher. We removed the last 2 rows from them, so it's only 3 rows. And that condition, we're able to reuse them down at Brookside Park. So we're going to be taking the old ones out of Brookside Park and scrapping that metal and putting the ones that had been at Gable that are 3 high over there. And that's fine. They meet code based on the way they are. So it'll be an improvement for Brookside, definitely an improvement for Gable with one purchase there. Staff continues to make regular visits to all the parks. We do all the cleaning and the inspection and all those kind of things. The shades for Brookside Park are still not resolved. We're actually getting a third representative with the company now. The original order was supposed to have been in. It turned out it wasn't put in by the person that left. The new person who came in was working on it, but they had to check on some things and then, quite honestly, drag their feet on it. So as soon as we could get that order finalized, we'll get it in. I don't know that we're going to have the shades up this season, but we'll have them ready to go for the next season. One thing they were checking on, and I was going to bring it back once they finalized it, was one of the other vendors that they deal with did have a shade that was designed to connect to the playset. So I was getting a price for what that would be as a potential swap out for one of the other ones that we were getting and bring that to you. But again, they haven't come through for us. There's a new rep being assigned to us. I'm promised that within a couple of weeks, I'll have the prices for all that, and then I can bring it to you and we could get it ordered.
Would you expect a price increase then, or?
I'm not sure. I don't expect a price increase for the singular ones that we ordered. So if you remember, there were 3 that we were going to get. There were 2 standalones and one that was going to go over one of the benches,
Right.
one of the tables. And what I need to see is if the one that can attach safely to the play set, what that would do to the other ones. If that would take the place of the 2 freestanding ones, and then we would just have the one over the table and then one on the play set. I just need to see where those prices come in to see how much shade we can get.
Okay.
And then the last thing, I am getting a price for the Gable Field basketball court. If we were, because I know the high school hasn't been able to finalize committing to the mural, and we are going into the 3rd season now that we haven't been able to get this finalized. And again, COVID was a major factor in the delay in the beginning of that. We really needed to get it done this season because we had originally intended to seal and paint that court 3 years ago. And we did that because it needed to be done. So now that we're getting this far into it, I don't want to have damage starting to happen to the court. So I'm getting a price if we were to just go back to the original plan and seal and paint it on the existing colors, and we'll see where that comes in. And that'll be it for my public works report.
So that the art teacher for the high school couldn't commit to the mural until the fall, and it just became too tight with trying to schedule the repairs and everything else, ordering the paint involved. So I'm not sure, if they can fix it and maybe we can paint it in the spring, then we'll do that. But if not, maybe we can just work with the art teacher and the students to do another project next year. It's a shame. It was a lot of work put into it.
Yeah, it's a shame that the challenge is, and again, I understand well what the teacher and the students have been going through, but it's 3 years, and we need to get that court cared for, or else we could start losing it. And it's going to start deteriorating past the point that we don't want to get into a situation where we have to start resurfacing it.
Right. But the most important thing is how it gets used and who uses it. And that's a very frequently used surface. And so, if we have to give up on the fancy painting for a few years, that's fine because it's going to get used. So the standard colors, sealing the surface, that should be the priority.
Yeah, my focus at this point, what I asked for the price on would be, is if it was painted the way that it is now and just do the repair work that needs to be done, repaint it the way that it is now so that it's fresh. And then we can investigate whether we do this here, whether we look at it at Newbie, whether we look at it at another location for something else.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, and one other thing, the bathrooms at Drexel Lodge, are they Oh, when are they open?
So as a general rule, I go and open them in the morning on the way in. So they're usually opened at 6 a.m. unless the staff are going around inspecting that day. And then they do it when they go around to take the trash out and those kind of things. Sometimes when vacations come into play, it can get left until later in the day or something when somebody realizes, but generally they're open by 6 in the morning and the police department closes them at night when they do their rounds.
How about weekends?
Weekends, I still go in and open them up and then the police close them.
Okay.
They get closed at sundown?
They should be closed at sundown, but it's whenever the police do their rounds through it. I mean, it could wind up being 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, if that's when their rotation is getting them through.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. I will just say, Wade, if I haven't gotten you and the grade school art teachers a copy of the new key for the back yet.
I got one from Harry.
You did, okay. I had asked them to make one for you. The back door to the restroom building was vandalized and the handle broken off. So we had to change the handle out and put a new lock on it.
Because when I was there, I pulled on the handle and it came off of my.
Yeah, somebody, it wasn't you, Jonathan. Somebody else had done that.
Luckily, they didn't steal any of the paint. All right, new business, item 8.1, discussion and possible action regarding a wiffle ball tournament sponsored by Parks and Recreation Committee. So I've had diverticulitis for the past 6 weeks. I just haven't been able to get a lot of stuff done. So I did reach out to him. He was interested in doing it. I'm not sure we're going to be able to fit it in the fall. It's just another one of those things that I think we just put too much on our plate. So maybe in the spring, I am going to reach out to him. If he still wants to do it on his own, I'll offer some assistance in that regard. But as far as us handling it, I think it's just too much.
This is
The wiffle ball with the Nell
no from Edgemont, Newtown Edgemont, Little League.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants to head that up, they're more than welcome to. The guy was very nice. And item 8.2, discussion and possible action regarding an athletic day at Drexel Park. This is another thing. I haven't done anything with it. I asked Peter to head that up. He's just been extremely busy himself, so I don't think that this is going to be a possibility either. Maybe next year. And then item 8.3 is discussion and possible action on Family Fun Day to replace September concert. So we have locked in the plans. I haven't given them any money, but they've committed to us that they'll be there for I think it's a 2-hour show, the full show. And the Railroad Museum is going to have the ride-on train there anyway. So we need to come up with some other things that we want to do there. Garrett Williamson 4-H Club hasn't gotten back to me yet. I want to reach out to them one more time and then get a price off of someone that is available for a petting zoo. And I'll reach out to Delaware County. I'm gonna actually drive down there, I think, and talk to them, tell them what we're doing and explain, we'd like to have food there, possibility of food and a petting zoo in the same facility. How far away do they have to be? But if anyone can think of anything else that we could have there, I think face painting came up, characters. So I guess I'll send something out and ask for everyone's input, and then we'll have it at the next meeting will be September, and we'll have to vote on it then, everything. So I'll just put everything together, and then we'll just vote on whatever options we want to do, what to select the best ones.
We have a date for that, right?
October 1st, 10 to 2:30. And I think, the band will be over at 2 probably, so, 2 to 2:30, people will just be leaving for the most part, but. I think that's when the Railroad Museum is open. I think they get into the Newtown magazine as well.
Yeah, you are the front page of the newsletter.
How about that? Wow.
So when is the band going to be playing?
So that's, we still have to discuss that. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Should it be at the end of the concert, at the end of the event? That way it allows people, some people might want to come the whole day. Some people might want to just come for the concert. I don't know. Most things, I think, headline stuff is usually at the end. I thought that it should be at the end. I don't think it matters to the band.
Okay.
They're fairly local. What are your thoughts?
I think maybe if they like at noontime, something like that, so it'd be what, 12 to 2 or something like that. And then, the whole thing goes from 10 to 2:30. So it'll be 2 hours before they start. They play 2 hours and then a half hour afterwards.
You, Bill?
Sounds fine.
Just a second. All right, so I'll try and set up a schedule based off of that, and then whatever other things we can get together between now and September's meeting. Send it out, and I guess we can put it up on the screen as well and discuss it.
2 hours before, they can have the face painting and all that. Maybe somebody blowing up and
Balloons?
balloon sculptor, the
Yeah.
little dogs out of balloons and stuff.
They had a balloon guy at the veterans event last year that was really good. So yeah, I don't think they're too expensive. Wouldn't break the budget.
We
Kids
had
like
one of those
balloons.
at one of our concerts. I remember seeing.
Maybe a long time ago.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Is there a party store?
Yeah. Right across from Cavallo's.
Oh, that used to be. Still there?
I think it is.
Oh,
Isn't it?
they might have some connection with those balloon stuff,
Oh, right.
because they sell balloons.
Right. Who? Okay. Item 8.4. Discussion and possible ideas regarding for open space at Sawmill Road, Sawmill site.
Well, good evening. My name is Chris Nolan, and I'm a landscape architect with Stantec. And even though I'm in the Philly office, we work closely with the Westchester office. I'm in the same group as the civil engineers there. And so I'm here essentially at the beginning of this whole process for developing a nice little park. I don't know what it's going to be called. We've been calling it Sawmill Park, but it's it could be Sawmill, it's Sawmill / Aspen. I guess that's to be determined. So anyway, at this point, we've completed our survey of the property. And so now, to my knowledge, that there has been no master plan or any kind of program elements formally developed for the park yet. The park itself is it's relatively small. It's only 3.2 acres. It's bounded by Route 252, Sawmill Road to the north, and Aspen Road to the south. And you're probably more familiar with the site than I am, but it's surrounded mostly by residential use. There's a social club.
Is that 3.2 just on the Sawmill portion, or is it 3.2 when you put the two?
3.2 are the two tracks together.
That's the total.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So again, just a basic existing conditions plan has been developed that shows you, what's out there. I guess at least one of the sites was a former residence. The building's not there anymore. And then on the southern site that bounds Aspen, not sure if there was ever a building there. It didn't show up on our survey that I had seen, but yeah, there's
Sure.
some interesting little columns out there on Aspen. So
Yeah, so the two tracks that are out there, the Sawmill site did used to be a house. There was a house on that property there. The Aspen site has actually, since that development occurred back behind there, down Sawmill and Sugar Maple and all them, that has been designated as open space. So one of the, and that was part of when the development came in, that was a parcel that was dedicated to the township as open space. I know with that particular parcel, because it is identified as open space, Steve Neese, the township manager, was checking on what the definition of open space was when it was dedicated, so that particular track of the two may have some restrictions on the kind of thing that could be done on it. It may need to stay open. It may not be able to have active recreation versus passive. So he was going to follow up on that. There is no restriction on the Sawmill part.
okay, well that's good to know.
And that split is where we define the two sections right there in blue. There's a blue line in the middle.
Yes,
That
yeah,
designates the two sites.
right.
Okay.
Right. So there's not much shown here. It's mostly wooded and there's some lawn area, you'd see in an old residential property. Again, it's surrounded by residential property on about 3/4 of the site. The social club is to the south, and then across the street, of course, is the big Lister development that, has trails and a lot going on that, users from Lister, people from Lister, I see as potential users of this small park. So again, there's been no master plan to my knowledge. So that's going to be part of the first thing we do, is to try to get some feedback or direction, or if anybody's got a wish list or some items that they'd like to maybe see out there, and we'll take a look at what will fit, what's appropriate, and probably come up with an initial concept to present, back to you with maybe some alternatives. The two directions that we could possibly go are, active uses or passive uses. Again, it's not a very big site. I took a look at what might fit there, and, just for instance, a big soccer field would not fit there, but there are ranges of soccer fields for smaller size, for younger kids. There's quite a varying degree in sizes. So something like that might fit, like small fields, or maybe it's a small playground or a play area. Other active uses might be tennis or paddle or pickleball, I think they call it now, which is
So
kind of
the two things that we lack in our township are inclusive playgrounds and pickleball courts. So there's a great demand for pickleball courts. We hear it everywhere we go, every survey. People make comments to the township. Pickleball is in high demand, so there is no opportunity here, and I don't know that there is any in Marple. Well,
okay. It's certainly becoming popular, and that would actually be a nice size-wise fit for this parcel, depending on how it plays out. But
Courts are about 30 by 60,
is that what they're roughly like a small tennis court,
like
to
a
my
half a
knowledge.
tennis court.
I've never designed one or even seen one, to be honest with you. I did do a little bit of research just to get general sizes. That would be something that we could fit, or even maybe several of them, like you would arrange tennis courts.
is there any restrictions on noise with the neighbors being so close?
Well, that's certainly going to have to be part of the discussion, because I don't know a whole lot about pickleball. It's a fairly new phenomenon, but one thing I've read is that it's not quiet, so
Yeah.
it depends
Well,
on how close you are to it.
It's noisy because it's a
Hard.
hard paddle, and it's a wiffle ball that's medium size. And when you hit it, crack, you hear a cracking sound. So the players are usually not very rowdy. So there's not noise from that, because it's a lot of older people tend to play it.
Okay.
But It's noisy in the sense that each time the ball is hit, it makes a cracking,
Yeah.
or
Gotcha.
like a popping noise.
So maybe once we come up with a program, and if it does include pickleball, we might have to look to see where the best location could be, which obviously might be the distance furthest from the neighbors, the residential. And then there are other things you can do with landscape screening to help cut down noise. And,
Mhm.
I don't know if we'd want fencing, but anyway, that's down the road. And so again, we are, like I said, just at the beginning of this, we're looking for any kind of direction or feedback. Again, a wish list.
And
And
is stormwater,
stormwater
is there an issue there?
will certainly be a part of it. The low point of the site is down there at the corner of 252 and Aspen. Now, I talked to Giovanna from our Westchester office, and she had mentioned that stormwater could be handled either on the surface in a traditional kind of way, or rain garden, depending on the method, but it could also be something that's underground. It could be beneath sports courts, or, so that's all part of the design. And again, these are just, potential active uses. Passive uses might just include a trail, left in its natural state, which maybe that's not, having heard what you just said about the demands for the playground and the pickleball courts, that maybe you don't want to devote all of it to a use like that. But in any event, I think even though it's only 3.2 acres, I think we can fit several uses here, because the ones that we're thinking of are not big area uses. So we will, again, we'll hope to get some feedback from you people, and whatever. Not sure what the procedure would be, getting information or getting something out to the neighborhood, but that will help to guide us in developing our initial concept.
That include some level of parking as well, right?
Well, that's all part of it, depending on the use. Almost any use would probably require some parking. If it's a sports field, even if it's a small one, that probably would have the highest parking demand. And, it's a small neighborhood park, so I don't know if there's, X number of spaces required for this use or that use, but it'll be part of what we would present to you, and, we'll get a feel for it, say that seems like too much and that's not enough. And I think it will develop a little bit, but since we're sort of starting from scratch, we're going to have to, master plan it with whatever input we get, and come back and get some feedback. I think that's a good way to go about these things. You get a little give and take, and, too much of this and not enough of that. So that's how I foresee this moving along here.
And I could envision, since the Lister Trail is like right on the other side of 252,
Right.
that there might be some, travel between
Sure.
sides. So you might want to take into account
And maybe
a
there's,
crosswalk of some kind.
right. I don't know if people from Lister would be coming over to our park, or people at our park might be using the park.
Parking there and then
going,
across.
using the Lister trails.
Right.
So, sure, there's a lot of those considerations that I think we'll flesh them out, as we
How do you
develop a
want to
concept.
handle getting out in the public?
So if I may, I think the township will handle getting public input when we get to that point in the planning process. I think the intention was to start a park and rec, because this is a space that would be envisioned to be utilized for recreation.
Mhm.
And so the intention was to have the township engineer's representative make a presentation to Park and Rec, and to get some initial feedback from you. I don't think it's going to fall on you to drive the surveys and those kind of things, but I think it was important for the township to hear from Park and Rec first before they even start going out with the other committees and the other groups to get an initial, sense of what do you, because you've got your fingers on the pulse of recreation in the community, what is the community asking for? Such as, for example, you've brought up pickleball on a number of occasions previously. You brought it up tonight. You've talked about some other ideas. They wanted to get your thoughts first and then start, moving the process out from there.
So do you want us to give you input in the next week or two?
That would be great. Even if you want to take these 11 by 17s, sketches up and maybe mark things up or use them to write things on,
Okay.
brainstorm.
Okay.
Again, normally we come in to some of these towns and there's been something developed that we begin with. So I think with this park, it's so recent or so new that whole part of it hasn't been done yet. And, yeah. So
how about could we put it on our agenda for next month and discuss it again, and then we'll all agree on what input we're going to provide to you.
sure.
That's probably the ideal situation. If now that you've heard the scope and seen on the map what it is, and you may want to go visit it and take a look at it, the ideal would be to bring it back in a public meeting and provide some feedback there.
Okay.
But I remember at one point, I think this property was being considered for a firehouse several years ago.
Yeah, so the property was originally purchased by the fire company to relocate the firehouse to.
Right.
Then they eventually did not go there. And
But I know there was like an effort in that community, because I remember seeing people's signs on their lawns and things, stop, they didn't want it. So there must be some kind of neighborhood organization that kind of headed that up. I'm wondering if those individuals could be contacted to get their input for what they'd like, because they live there. And so they have a vested interest in what happens with this. So, their input, I think, would be important. I'm not sure who that is, but there was a group that did organize some kind of effort.
That's always really good,
I'm sure they're familiar. George and Steve are familiar with this complaint.
So that's really all I have. I mean, again, this is hardly even a kickoff. We're hardly at a kickoff. I guess next time we get together, that we may have a little more feedback from, the neighbors and yourselves. So, we won't wait till then to start putting some things together. But again, I think it's helpful to see sometimes in the old days, we would print something out and then literally print out a tennis court to size and something else, a playground, and you could slide things around. It's a little different now. Everything's on the computer, but essentially the process is similar. So we'll, eventually we'll just get our concept tighter and tighter and see how it goes. And then obviously the engineering is a big part of it. And, there's things like if there's a parking lot, where's the best place to locate the parking lot? How far off? Which, what street is it most desirable to have the driveway? How do we, how does that affect whatever the nearest neighbor, what are the implications there? How can we maybe soften the impact of some of the improvements we make or are proposing? So that will come in time, I suppose.
All right, so we will commit to have feedback to you after our September meeting. We'll agree to it, then we'll document it and send it to you.
Okay, that's
With
real
all of
good.
our concerns, inputs.
Important consideration is going to be George following up on what actually is open space and what restrictions actually occur, because it looks like the Aspen portion would be a great spot for parking to preserve the other part for whatever reason it's used, and what the sawmill component, because it's got a little low area and whatever, and it's going to be more difficult to develop that either way. But if you can't put anything on it.
correct. And the township manager was researching that exact question, and we'll get that information out to you so that it factors in with what you recommend.
Even a trail, even if we could just put a trail in there. it would be-
The thing that could be potential for parking too would be to have permeable parking. That is, things like grasscrete or whatever, where kids could go right through. And seen some of that's done in church parking lots. It's very effective. but it's also permeable so that you're protecting the ground underneath. But also, being right on 252, this is going to be very accessible. People are going to see it driving by, and it's likely to maybe draw people from further away than just the neighborhood. This is not a neighborhood park like Newby or Greer. This is going to be on a major highway. So if we can get off the road onto a parking lot, there are going to be people that are going to use it. So that's a plus too. Parks should be used.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, thank
Back
you.
to us.
all right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, public comment. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, everyone. Well, since our June meeting, we have a lot to report on. The Summer Fitness in the Park series has been going on from June 14th to August 23rd. So we have 8 weeks completed with only 3 more sessions left. And the class is every Tuesday night from 6:15 to 7:15. Things are going great. Alex Young and Bonnie have been spectacular. All over the residents that have come, and actually a couple of outsiders have come too, because they've heard about it. They've really enjoyed it. He's been able to use, we actually, thanks to George, they've been turning on the power for us, which has been very helpful, because during the storms, they've been using under the pavilions as the tables actually for different type of exercise equipment they bring in, which we have hand sanitizers at each station, but it's really been well received and it's been very helpful. So again, thank you to Young Forever Fitness and Nutrition, Alex and Avani, for doing that. Every week, it's been well received. On Wednesday, July 20th, we had Zumbini. Now, that was a really oppressively hot night. But what we did modify the activity a little bit, so a little bit less jumping and dancing and more sitting down playing. I did actually bring bubbles again to kind of keep the kids in their own little circles to make sure we were careful of, social distancing. And even though we're past most of those restrictions, we were still kind of being careful with following that, especially with children. As a precaution, I also brought, because it was nearly 100 that night, I brought cold water bottles extra just to pass out to keep the children and the families well hydrated. What's great news from that is since Newtown Township Parks and Rec has been providing Zoom Beanie, we were able now to encourage Marple Newtown Recreation to offer this program through the Marple Newtown Rec Services, and classes will be held at Drexel Large. Now people can register for the class, and at this time they will be paying for that, but that's a great win for our Marple Newtown Recreation
When
Services.
does that start, Sheila?
That'll be, the Marple Newtown Recreation starts that in September. I believe it's on their calendar and I can get that for you. I think it's like a Monday at 9:30 and a Wednesday at 9:30, but that's handled through, that's not our program. That's through Marple Newtown Recreation Services. And it is a program that you must register for and pay, but Marple Newtown Rec was grateful to us because we brought them under our wing, and they will be providing these classes for the community for a fee at Drexel Lodge. But again, it's great for little kids. Now in August, we are starting our August Yoga in the Park series. Now what's great, this will be a Monday because we want to keep things, remember, we're always trying different days and different times to accommodate different people's schedule. So we have 3 sessions in August. Monday, August 15th at 9:30 a.m. That's all level yoga, and that is free. Monday, August 22nd at 6:30 p.m. That's mat and Pilates yoga, which is a little bit different. And again, different abilities, different, welcome, everyone is welcome. There's no judgment. And then what is phenomenal, Newtown Township Parks and Rec and the library, Angela, we've partnered together to do on August 29th at 9:30, a kids yoga and story time. So Angela has been fantastic. We are doing this in support of each other. Newtown Township Parks We'll be working with them in providing the structure for it. Thanks to Yoga in the Circle, who will actually be providing the instructor, and Angela will approve the books to make sure that we're all, very okay with everything, and that is going well. So looking forward, that'll complete all of our summer exercise programs. Thanks be to God. But what I would love from you guys is I definitely need more support with, promotional material and communication to the public, especially would love for public relations to kind of help with this because there's a lot to it. I have to post it on my own personal page to all these community pages and trying to really hard to do that to the point my own husband's going to block me because I have to share like 15 things all the time.
So I'm going to start posting it on Facebook myself, if that's okay with the township.
Yes, you share what
Is there
they
anything
create.
we can do to help get that out? I can send you the information. She has a poster for it.
We have that, we have it created, and
Okay.
Rose has created it now, and we're sharing, all we need to do is if they create it, we share it from their platform.
It's
So
on there now?
Their approval, yes.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize that.
Right, so
Sorry.
I've been working also with Amber from Marlboro Newtown Recreation, and I've been working with Sheila Turner Hillard, and we were actually, I don't know if you guys know that, but we were in the July Newtown Square Friends and Family and in the August section for the events for the parks. Did you guys know that? So these have been, so Sheila was really helpful. Thank you, Sheila, for helping us with that. And also we got a great write-up from the township that the August newsletter came out, which was, and Forever Young was really helpful too. I don't know if you guys saw it, the half-page spread.
Yes.
It was highlighting all the activities of Parks and Rec, but it was really, really helpful. So that was the last of the parks things. So a couple things I was asking you for, this is me as a private citizen, because you guys are on parks and you will be considering your 2023 budget. I know that you mentioned before, George and Wade, you mentioned that there's a possibility of either a new roof or some type of repairs to Drexel Lodge Park. I would love if you could consider maybe possibly having 2 or 3 ceiling fans for Drexel Lodge Park under the pavilion. It would help with your moisture issue under the pavilion, but also since you have bocce ball, you have that place rented out heavily. If you had close to the ceiling fans, it would help circulate the air, and it would really be an advantage to rent out the facility, but also when classes are there, because the parks obviously does events there, the library does events there, there's different community groups that are there. So it would be a really helpful thing just to have 2 or 3 ceiling fans that are mounted. And again, they would only be turned on when the electricity is on, so it wouldn't be an extra cost. You could look at possibility of having solar operated, which would store the battery on that, but then you would have limited scope, but that was something to consider. Another thing I would like you to consider for your budget items is for you to maybe have some money set aside to boost your Facebook page for the community, because this will be helpful to you. Newtown Township only has 1,500 friends on your Newtown page. You could build up your base by just having a couple $100 set up in your boosting fund. 1,500 is less than 10% of your population. And although we do, put out flyers, we send out texts and all that, we have to hit people where they are. And it really would be helpful if you could just put a couple $100 in your budget for boosting Facebook. In addition, what would be critical is if Parks and Rec, if your board could give a letter of support or ask for, I understand that the possible for next year for the grant writer is a potential. This would be an employee of the township, whether it be whatever the provisions, but it would be great if the Parks Board could show their full support for that. You have a lot of plans on the books. You have the master plan for Greer, you have the master plan for Newtown Square Meadow Preserve. A grant writer will help you actualize these plans and become a reality, but it would be helpful if you could show the Board of Supervisors your commitment. And another thing that I will be discussing with Cindy, Cindy, you want to come up, we'll talk about your planting idea, the tree planting. Yep. You have to come to the official microphone. You want to go into the tree planting first or the signage?
Well, Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run, Vice Chair of the EAC. Steve, I just sent to you an email with the signage proposal, which Sheila, I don't know, had you sent it to the Parks and Rec?
You sent it, you copied it to Wade.
Okay, okay.
I have it here. It's just this, it's like 2 pages long. It has 6 signs on it that John Custer came up. Is that what we're talking about? The same
No.
thing?
No, mine is a PowerPoint presentation that's about 8 to 10 slides.
Cindy sent it to you.
Well, Steve, do you have it? I just emailed it to you. Well, while he's pulling that up, I can explain what this is. It started as the EAC had funding as part of our Growing Greener grant for the planting out here to have some really nice, permanent, high quality interpretive signs made, the type that you see at a park, a national park or a state park, that are hundreds of dollars each. And part of the guidance we received from the township is that since this would be the township embarking on one of hopefully many of such signs, we should come up with a template, something consistent, something that reflects the township branding, something that will be very professional looking. So as things evolved, Trails and Greenway is also interested in doing permanent interpretive signs. So I have been working with Bethany, can't pronounce her last name, who's a member, Danjisha, who is a member of the new Trails and Greenway. She's an excellent resource. She's young, she's dynamic. She is a park ranger at Valley Forge National Park. She has done park education, nature education. She has done signage systems. So she knows a lot about this. So she and I put our heads together and came up with this presentation, which is a proposal for a township-wide signage system. We're just trying to kick this off to present it to the different bodies that would be affected or involved in this. So in this proposal, there's 6 things. Number 1 is the importance of a graphic identity. Number 2 is what a signage system might consist of. 3, the different types of signs that we see a need for in our township. Then a prototype of a particular sign, to give you an example, and then a suggestion about creating a database of signs so that we can, the township can kind of keep tabs on these. If you want, I can quickly go through it now.
Yeah.
And you know, we're not asking for your feedback now, but we're trying to get out and present this. Beth has already presented it to Trails and Greenway. I presented it this week to EAC. We want to present it to you now, and Public Works will have an input. So if you could go to the next slide. So this just explains why is it important to have a consistent graphic identity. What is it? It consists of branding, such as maybe the township logo, consistent font sizes and colors and logo placement, a consistent look. And then why to have one? One of the reasons is so when someone's in our township and they see a sign, there's a recognition factor. They know, oh, I'm in Newtown Township because it's branded and it's consistent across trails and parks and township buildings. Next slide. Now, Beth and I brainstormed what signs do we think there should be that the township would have need for. The first would be entrance signs like there is out front of this building or at the front of Drexel Lodge Park. These signs already exist There's the wood, green and white ones with the gold lettering. The second category would be kiosks, of which there are already several. They're the wood, the big wood things, like just the two new ones at by the train museum. The third one would be a new category, which would be interpretive, what they're called interpretive or educational wayside signs, which would be, something big like this, colorful, educational, like on really sturdy pedestals in concrete in the ground. The fourth would be maps or directional signs that might be along the trails, since we are going to be having more and more trails, or for example, at Drexel Lodge Park. Now there's a kiosk at the bottom of the hill by the beginning of those trails back there. But we're at the beginning of the Bishop Hollow Trail, just so people know like what's ahead. And then the fifth one is something we thought the Shade Tree Commission might be interested in which we already have on some places, which are tree identification tags, because this would support the trees at the township's initiative to plant 1,000 trees, help educate people about that. So those are the 5 categories we thought of. If you see something that you think is missing, we're looking for feedback. These are just examples here of signs that kind of show you the distinctive branding or the identity that are in state parks, national parks, things like that. Next one, and these are the entrance signs, examples of ones that already exist. Now, George, is there an initiative underway to change these, or?
Not specifically. I think when the sign discussion took place, there would be a look to say when it's time to replace those signs, we would want to follow whatever that parameter turned out to be. But I don't think right now there's a plan to say, let's change all the park signs out tomorrow.
Okay, because I think they're very attractive.
I think they're straightforward. They tell you,
Yeah.
they're meant to guide you to the park.
Yes.
I think a kiosk sign nearby would tell you more information about it. They're intended to draw your attention to
Yes.
the park from the street or the sidewalk.
Yeah, exactly. They have different purposes.
Yeah, but they would, I think eventually, whatever the signage plan would be, they would fit into it as they started to get changed out.
Okay. So the
And they
next
are uniform. There is some uniformity here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
uniformity. That's, yeah. The next slide are kiosks. I didn't go out and take any pictures of them, but I'm sure you've seen them. They're the big wood stakes with a little roof over it, and usually I would call it like a bulletin board. There's usually behind lucite panels, so you can put notices or information up there. And it's, again, those we would think would be somewhat close to the main entrance of a park. Like Bethany even had a suggestion. She said, like at Drexel Lodge, the kiosk right now is down at the bottom of the hill. But she said, if you put it up closer to the parking lot where people arrive, then you could give people an overview of what are all the resources at this park. There's the train museum, the bocce court, the trail. So people could, and you could even have like a QR code there, or you could maybe have a little lucite container for brochures, like a physical trail map that someone could pull out, like in a little lucite waterproof thing.
Or a map of the trail.
A map of the trail there. Yes, there's,
Most people don't know that there's a trail there. When I tell people there's a trail there, they're like, oh, really?
Well, that's what Bethany's point was, is she goes, you want to tell people why they should go down the hill, that if they go down the hill, there's something there. So that we already have kiosks. The next slide, please. So this would be something that I don't think we really have now, but these would be maps or directional signs along the trails. And here's some examples of like where they might be posted. You might have other ideas or suggestions. And you can see how these ideas cross over. So like we would want input from the Trails and Greenways people. We would want input from the tree commission on the next, if you go to the next slide. For example, these tree identification tags. Now, these are already in use on some of the trees on the Goshen Walking Trail. And are there some at Drexel Lodge too?
Yes.
Yeah. These are ready-made signs that can be purchased for like $5 each. There's a company that makes these and you just tell them what species tree you have and they send them to you. So they're readily available. They're pretty much inexpensive. They're about this big. If you've ever been to Ridley Creek Park, they have these same signs there. And they can either be posted directly on a larger tree, done properly, or the one in the picture is actually on a stake. So for example, in Gable Park, where we have all these little itty bitty new trees, what you could do is you could put one post in the ground. And a lot of our trees are grouped, like there might be 6 or 8 red buds in a row. Well, you wouldn't have to label every one, but you could do one stake for like the 8 red buds. And then the Interpretive Waysides, there's a picture there of an example of, as I said, they would be colorful, informational. They would be strategically placed at a noteworthy feature of the site. So for example, we might have one of these at the rain garden here, like tell people what they're looking at, what is a rain garden. At Gable Park, you might have 2 or 3. You might have one that talks about native plants. Why are native plants important? And you might have a second one that talks about like the importance of planting trees, like why we planted so many trees there and why you could plant trees in your property. Or there could even be one on like watersheds, the fact that the planting was done there to help control stormwater because there is a stream nearby, even though you can't see it. And they can either have a single pedestal or a double, but they would, as I said, be very sturdy and put, anchored into concrete in the ground. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so this is an example of what a sign might look like. Now, this is an early prototype. I already see problems with it that I have feedback. For example, if you have a blue logo, which was just cut and pasted there, against a blue background, you're not going to see the blue logo against a blue border. So we have lots of refinement to make. What colors, what type font. And to me, what's wrong with this is it shouldn't say Gable Park because we're already going to have a separate sign, an entrance sign, maybe green and white with the gold letters that would let you know you're at Gable Park. Here, what should be in the blue is something like the garden that works below and above, or like this is a rain garden, or the importance of forests or trees. So it would be, the wording up there would be topical, but you might have some couple paragraphs of text, couple images. George, I think you had suggested the QR code, so people could, go to it and get more information. Like if you had one that said native plants and you wanted people to go, let's say they wanted to get a list of what are all the plants that are planted there, they could scan the QR code, go to the website, and there would be a list. Or maybe even the planting plan that tells you what are all the species there, what are all the native plants there. And then a lot of times when you receive grant funding from an organization, they ask for signage and they ask for credit. So those are the logos you see down in the bottom left, that funding was provided by Growing Greener. I had put the name of the landscape firm in there, but the EAC members already said they didn't think it was appropriate to have the name of the vendor in there. So I think there's one more slide after this. And this was, again, one of Beth's ideas. She had a lot of great ideas. She said, if the township's embarking on investing in more signs and trying to be consistent, she saw that there could be value to keeping an inventory or a database of what are the signs, what are the topics, where are they, when have they been most recently inspected, and like keeping track of the topics. Like, do you really want 5 slides that talk about, or signs that talk about native plants? Maybe you don't want to be repetitive of certain topics, but you want to hit different topics. So I went through that pretty quickly, but I can resend it to you and then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of trouble with stuff going.
That's
to-
fine.
Well, I think the point was that tonight Cindy was just presenting it to you. You have to put this on your agenda item next month for your board to decide what you want to do in terms of you are supporting this and any type of input, because you can't make a decision on supporting this tonight, obviously, because it has to go out for your next agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do like educational sign in our passive parks. I think we need to dress them up. I've always said that.
Yep.
And this, does that. So.
And there was some discussion the other night about if there was some change to the township logo, if that happens, again, that would be building continuity with the colors and the scheme. So if the township is managing this, this is all a, but basically,
Oh,
Cindy.
I'm sorry, there's one more slide, which you just reminded me of. You were starting to talk about what the timeline and the process is. So we're in July, well, we're past July, which is when Bethany and I put this together. We're now in August, which is presenting it to all the different boards and bodies for your review and your input. And then, I view this as a dialogue and an iterative process and getting your input. And then hopefully, after we've heard all these voices, we can refine this, change it, and get it to the point where we're ready to present it to the Board of Supervisors and then get their approval with it.
Okay.
You just have to decide if you see there's value added to these signs. But Cindy does have to have signs to fulfill her grant requirements for the CRC project that she worked on for Gable Park and for the rain garden last year.
Yeah, so in the meantime, because we realize this might take several months, and because we've gotten questions about some of the gardens, we're going to have some inexpensive, almost like political type size signs made for
Gable and the rain garden.
Gable and the rain garden, just like a stopgap measure.
Do you have a inventory of the current signs that are in the various parks? And
That's a good question, like the kiosks and.
Yeah, the information is available and we can pull it together into a master list. There's not, like what Cindy and Sheila are talking about, there's not that kind of level of signage in the parks. I mean, each park has a main sign that identifies what's there. We know where the kiosk signs are because they've all been Boy Scout projects that have built those kiosk signs. There's a handful of other signs, like up at the Meadow Preserve and a few other locations that are more particular. So that could be brought together. What they're talking about is much more comprehensive with regard to wayfinding and directional and informational signage that doesn't really exist in the park system right now. And I know the hope has been to try to establish it there. We could, for sure, though, Bill, get a list very easily together for Park and Rec to see. And I could get it to you too. It's easy.
Inventory of what currently exists. And even the entrance and exit signs, like in the parking lot here. So everything's on the list, like, so we know what potentially could be replaced.
Yeah, so we can absolutely get that to you. That is not a problem because there's not that much of it. I know one of the benefits to the project that they're working on, and like they talked about an inventory, we'll be able to capitalize that. We'll be able to make sure that the insurance covers that, so that if a quality sign is put together and it's damaged, it's covered under insurance. It's very clear. It's part of an inventory that's there. So that'll be a benefit by that whole piece of what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's great to know. That's one of the reasons we're putting it out to everybody, is we're thinking there are things that you may think of that we've overlooked, or maybe there's like a niche for a sign,
Yeah.
a type of sign that we haven't thought of. like.
There are certain
a
signs
gap.
that get vandalized too. So there might be like a heavy duty version of the sign.
Well, like down at one of the parks that the welcome sign is traditionally vandalized, we switched over from the wood to an aluminum sign, which is like our street signs, because it was constantly getting vandalized and it's more difficult to do now, at least because it's metal. The one thing I'll add to what they were talking about and the kinds of signage, we had talked in the past about should Newtown have some wayfinding signage on the streets that would point visitors and point residents to certain parks, certain locations like the Paper Mill House or the Bartram Bridge or something like that, that would be very Newtown. And the challenge is always to not create sign pollution on the streets because there are so many signs on the streets.
Yes.
But at the same point, if you're in town, that maybe you're a visitor and you get pointed to a park or you get pointed to a historic site, and it's something that's consistent with how Newtown signage looks, there could be benefit to that. So I know that's one of the kinds of signs that was thought about that could fit into something like this.
It'd be like around where the Acme Shopping Center is, like if there was some kind of thing that would give an indication of where things are. I know when you go into the city of Philadelphia, you see these things where you got little maps of where the historic sites are and where, it'd be nice to have like a central place that people would see. So they'll know, oh, that I just got to go up the street.
Yes, very similar, Jonathan, would be a handful of locations that had real this way to this way to that.
Right.
And it can help drive activity to the sites. And then there's more information at the site when you get there.
It's a great idea. So, yeah, pass along the comments and the feedback.
All right, so the next great event is Cindy will also talk about this as well. As you know, Cindy was able, and this has not been approved, obviously the Board of Supervisors are still in the process of approving, but there is a potential for a tree planting, which will be September 16th and 17th and September 30th and October 1st. This will be in coordination with CRC, with Newtown Township EAC, Shade Tree, Parks and Rec, Public Works, everything, if indeed the Board of Supervisors approved. This was a program that has come upon quickly, but they're necessary because Cindy and some others were able to procure some Keystone 100 trees. So Cindy, if you want to go into all the details. Now, I know that the Train Museum is October 1st. And as you know, Shade Tree is the domain responsibility for trees, but we all want to work together. And as you know, last month we had an informal meeting with Shade Tree Wade wasn't able to make it because he wasn't well that night, but Parks was discussed in terms of also Paul was there from Newtown Square and Bloom. Janet was there from Birdtown, Cindy and myself, and Trish Adams and Carol Wagner. And it was just saying, how are we going to move the dial on this 1,000 tree initiative that we have as our MS4 requirement? And remember, we have to plant 1,000 trees in this township by 2025. And that's a really huge undertaking. So we have to make some things happen right away. So Cindy came upon these trees, and if you want to go into it, and this is phenomenal. So I know it's a lot of work, but we can make things happen.
Yeah. So the source of the free trees and shrubs and free planting materials is the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has a goal to plant 10 million trees in Pennsylvania. I forget by when. Soon. George and I have been aware of this for a couple of years, and the township is registered as a partner with the foundation, which means the township can get access to these free trees and materials. And they distribute them twice a year, spring and fall. And George actually got how many in the spring? 100?
I think we got 250.
250
Yeah.
little bitty seedlings in the spring, which he has put in the tree nursery and which are available to give out to residents, which that's probably something we need to talk about, helping you publicize that this fall, right? Or do you have a plan already?
There's plans in the works on
Oh, good.
that piece of it.
Okay, well, hopefully you can share that with us too. In the fall round of plants, to me, is a little better because they're bigger. They're actually in dirt. They're not bare root, and they're 3 inches by 3 inches by 9. So the plants are a little bit bigger, and they're trees and shrubs, all native trees and shrubs. So we were approached by the Upper Providence EAC, which is ordering a bunch of trees in conjunction with Ridley Creek Park. And they said, do you want to go in on this with us? Because it's a very complicated program. You have to get 25 of each species. Now, do you really want 25 of one type of tree? That's, it's like, you don't want a monoculture. You want some diversity in your habitat. So we asked Steve, and he said, yes, you can go ahead and order the trees because the deadline was coming up. But if we had to cancel them, we could cancel them. So what we've done is to try to figure out how would we get these in the ground. And the model we're proposing is very similar to the model that we used at Gable Park, where we partnered with CRC, the Chester Ridley Crum Creek Watershed Association, which specializes in tree planting. That's what they consider their sweet spot. And they recruit and provide a group or a couple groups of corporate volunteers on a Friday afternoon for 3 or 4 hours. They recruit the volunteers, they bring them, they set up the awning, they have gloves, they have drinks, and these corporate volunteers show up and work. And that's exactly what happened at Gable Park and also with the rain gardens. And then on Saturday morning, we recruit community volunteers from the Master Watershed Steward through different publications, Sign Up Genius, and we get community volunteers to come out Saturday morning and do more of the work and the planting and finish it up. Now, a very critical part of this was Public Works, which was integral to the planning from the get-go and did a lot of site prep, materials delivery, stuff like that. We also hired Dave Hilbert, who at the time was an employee of CRC, to help us with the tree selection, a lot of the logistics of the plants, figuring out exactly where each tree would be planted, putting flags in the ground, working with George on getting the holes drilled in advance. The day of the event, I think he borrowed your little golf cart and buzzed around and dropped all the trees and all the stakes, and everything was set up. And then we had the volunteers come and they planted. And I thought it came pretty well. So we're like, okay, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can replicate that process.
And that was a big success. Just think about
Yeah,
that.
so there was 140 trees and
Planted.
shrubs planted last fall
In that space.
over there. Only 2 died over the
Which
entire
is
winter.
incredible. That was because of Public Works, their
Yeah.
support, watering those plants. That was a huge
Yeah,
effort too.
well, and
And Dave and
George fabulously was able to hire Dave this summer in lieu of your interns to maintain over there and give them a lot of TLC, water them, readjust the deer protection and stuff like that.
maybe
So
have to move a plant.
yeah,
or
he
two.
actually
Kind of
moved a
move
couple
couple
plants that were not ideally located. So that's a phenomenal success rate. And that's why I think we're both very happy with the work he had done for us last fall and this summer. So we're at the point now where I believe Bruce from the EAC is going to meet with Steve tomorrow and review the details and make sure the Public Works is on board because it's work for them. And then probably I've been told the Board of Supervisors will probably have to vote on it, which we're hopefully they can do Monday night. And then we'll go ahead with the publicity and just,
And we basically listened to Wade. Wade had approached
Oh,
the
yeah.
EAC and asked us for help with giving the attention to Newbie Park. Because
Yeah,
I
I should
remember,
have mentioned that at
Yeah,
the very beginning.
Newbie
The
Park-
two park sites are targeted are Brookside Park and Newbie. And we specifically picked Newbie because Sheila and you and other people have told us that Newbie Park needs some love, it needs some attention. You're trying to improve things there. You had the family day there, there's stormwater issues. The other reason from a stormwater perspective that Newbie Park is important is you may not realize it, but the rain that falls in Newbie Park ends up at Brookside Park.
yes,
You did tell me that when we were
Yeah,
on a walk.
which is maybe surprising, but it goes down the hill, gets in that little stream which runs all along Bryn Mawr Avenue and then goes into Brookside Park. And Brookside Park is an area that's been targeted several years ago by the township engineer in the MS4 plan as a place to do stream bank restoration. So ideally, when you're trying to restore a stream that is being gouged out by too much rain flow and erosion, what you do is you look uphill to say, well, where is that water coming from? And can we take measures uphill to help the water infiltrate and slow down so that less of it ends up in Brookside Park, which is one of the reasons we're looking, strategically to put trees and shrubs there.
and actually we did with Wade, Paul, Cindy, Janet, and I, and Dave, we did a site survey at Newbie and Brookside, was that 2 weeks ago? And just to kind of get the lay of the land, to make sure that we're aware of a lot of things, because, that's why we need George's opinion as well as Dave and everyone else, because there's things like the sight lines for the police to be aware of. There's,
So what are we proposing exactly for each park? Is it, I heard 150 trees or what?
I think it's like about 100 at Brookside, 100 trees and shrubs, and 150 at Newbie. And based on some of the observations that you made the day we were there, you pointed out the Japanese knotweed infestation right by the entrance there, and then across the way there was the devil's walking stick infestation. So Dave proposed treating those the invasives to kill them, and then planting shrubs in those areas.
Okay, so the 150 number is shrubs as well as trees.
Yes,
So
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Like, 'cause I'm
roughly
right here,
Brookside
150
No,
trees.
you think 150
There
trees?
is 90 at Brookside and 148 proposed at Newbie. But that is trees and bushes from this list. And I believe, wasn't Dave going to slightly alter this list?
We have to see about that.
Yeah.
That-
Dave
that-
was going to slightly consider it and basically seeing what else. But I guess,
Yeah, so I got an email from Bruce today that you were concerned about the plantings not interfering with recreational space.
Yeah, so there's some spaces there, like we looked at the lower entrance to Newbie Park, for example. There's a Pico substation there and a road that goes down to it. There's a property that someone owns. The township actually owns a good portion of that person's property. And he maintains it, I think, for the most part. I mean, it is what it is. But we might target that, we looked at that and we targeted for possible trees. We might target that for a gazebo, a picnic table, and it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years or 20 years down the road. I'm concerned about, what happened 100 years ago and how we're trying to survive through it. And all your work, is related to someone who did think of stormwater management, 50 years ago. Now you have to do all the work. So I don't want to put something in there if we want to one day, 20 years from now, put a gazebo and have a picnic area in that. If we're successful in making that a nice park, somebody might want to have a picnic there. So I want to keep some of those spaces open. There's a similar space at Brookside, right at the entrance of Ridgefield and Brookside. There's a property there, and then it's right across from the pool. And it was open. There's some hemlocks, some pretty healthy hemlocks in the area that we looked at. So that's another area you could actually park in and put a pavilion and a playground and some barbecue grills. I don't know. It's just, I want to make sure we don't mess up someone's plan 20 years from now
Yeah.
as well.
No, that's a really good point. One of the things that I want Dave to do is to provide a detailed map. You know, he's explained to me in general the areas that he was thinking of. But I definitely, you know, we need a specific plan, you know, map. Because you need it for approvals and we need it for sight lines, for whatever. We don't want to interfere with MS4 plans. Yeah, so.
So you have a map drawn up here. This is newbie here, Bill. So that's you're only suggesting planning there, or is Dave going to have a more detailed and more expansive planning area?
This is something I threw together this afternoon when
Okay.
I received the request.
Okay,
It's based on a conversation I had with Dave.
okay,
I don't have the detailed map from him yet. I didn't think it was fair to ask him to spend the time putting that together before he'd been officially hired. But I've told him that that is something we're going to need.
okay. So how about if we just provided you with input as far as what we think areas, you know, might be designated in the future that should be protected?
Yeah.
Areas that we think might need, like at Brookside, you go close to Brentmore Avenue, there's still water there every winter that freezes and they have to solve it. So all this is not good for the environment. If we could get more plantings in there that suck up some of that water, we might fix two problems.
I thought that we were kind of being very careful. We were told not to plant over by that side just yet until the stream restoration bank work was occurring.
I'm talking where we planted those trees 4
On the other
years
side,
ago.
yes.
Just
Away
put
from,
more
on
in
this,
there.
on the what side away from the stream?
Just put more in there. One of them died, you know.
Right.
If we could put more smaller shrubs, something to suck up some of that
Talking
water in
about
that water line. that's
Between the
coming down.
stream and Brookside Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Towards
Brookside
Brookside.
is just filled with water, and a lot in the winter time when they're
Right.
stalling and
And like you said, it would be great to put it in the peripheral so you're not taking away from your recreational use. So, I mean.
and it's already has trees there, so if
Right.
we could put just a few more trees there, swamp maples, I don't know what sucks up water best.
Yeah.
Well, Dave did
Well,
walk with us, remember, and we kind of looked over that side, that's where I think he was looking.
I'm
You know,
still,
but-
I'm still not sure which area you're talking
He's
about.
talking where we planted
Yeah.
back 3 years ago.
Yeah, but we planted trees in 3 areas.
So the
So
road
when you're-
out,
when you're-
Brookside Road out to Brentmore Avenue, right, you know where Brookside Road goes to Brentmore Avenue in the
Yes.
park? If you look to the right, we planted like 12 trees there.
As you're leaving the park,
Yes,
on your right,
yes.
yes.
So that area is still, it gets soaked. I mean, there's just puddles of water that freezes every year and then it's salted. It happens every year. I don't know if you could target some of these trees for that area, even if just 3 of them, you know,
Yeah.
that would suck up
Well,
some
the-
more
the-
water.
The thing about that is again, you always want to look uphill. If you have puddles here, you want to plant there. Because you don't want to plant necessarily where it's already wet, because the trees will probably die. They'll suffocate from too much water. And if you're getting salt from the road, most plants can't tolerate that. But if we know that that's a wet area, you know, we can plant,
Find out where that water's
but we
coming
might
from.
not do it right exactly there. And that's something Dave is
Okay.
good at. And George, you know these conditions better than I do.
Yeah, because a lot of that
So-
water comes from the other side. If you look at the slope off of Northwood and what is that street behind that, you know, the hill that comes down right by,
Are we back to newbie?
yeah, no, we're talking, no, right off of Brookside, right off of, you go up
Yeah, that's,
Brookside and,
no, Northwood's on the other
not
side.
Northwood, what's the street when you come up? You go up Marin to Barron and right down Marin, that back road. When you go down Barron to,
Well-
right below Rockwood.
Well, the point
That
is,
road, that water
you
goes
guys
down.
should mark that
Yes.
up and let us know.
So,
Give us
yeah,
your
we- so we-
feedback.
I think
point
we have
these
some
things out to
concerns
us.
of some areas that
Yeah.
that are maybe problems that.
Yeah,
please
if
could
you're
help.
aware of issues that
There's
I'm
some
not.
shade
yeah.
that we need some shade in some areas. You know, you marked up Brookside, you had some trees in front of and behind the playground that might help with shade.
Yes, that's what we were asking before. That might help you if you're going to change your plans with that accommodation too.
I'll mark something up. I'll send it out to the committee, get input back, readjust it, send it out, and then we'll agree to it, send it to you as far as what we think.
Sure. So I just saw this afternoon, the township manager working to try to set up a meeting with some of the heads, the chairs and vice chairs of the main committees that are going to be involved with this project. And I'm sure part of that meeting is going to be figuring out the best way to help all the committees work together in determining the locations and things like that. So my suspicion is he's working to set it up as quickly as he can, probably within a week or so.
No, he's targeted Friday, August 12th from 2 to 3:30.
Good, okay. I remember, I saw that it was
Yeah.
going out. And
Yeah.
so I think from that meeting, there'll be a lot of direction and help with like, okay, how are we going to make this all really play together? And certainly by the time the next Park and Rec meeting comes up, I think you'll be able to have it on the agenda as a giving direction agenda item, and you know, that feedback can flow through publicly, and you know, the group working on it is going to be able to get all their answers from Park and Rec and from some of the other committees.
So the dates that are scheduled right now are tentatively September 17th and 18th would be, 16th and 17th would be, first would go Brookside, and then September 30th and October 1st would be Newbie. And that would be kind of tentative to the dates that are set up, so.
And those dates were chosen for a couple of reasons. One, based on the delivery date of when the plants are coming in, because we don't want these plants sitting around for a long time, requiring to be watered. And plus, they need to get in the ground before the first frost so that they have time to get adjusted. And then also, those dates were the only 2 Fridays that CRC had left that they could recruit corporate groups from. And then between those 2 dates, I originally had them flipped, but we have an EAC member who lives in the Newbie Park area.
Joe Pinto.
And he advised us to not do Newbie in September, because he said the weekend that we were looking at, they're all going to be gone on a camping trip or something.
Yes.
And that he wouldn't be around, and a lot of the neighbors wouldn't be around to help. So we would get less neighborhood support if we did it in September. So he advised us to go to October
1st.
October 1st,
For-
which
for
I didn't,
But
for
we're still
newbie.
doing both parks.
I know,
It's just-
but.
I didn't know about your train thing.
And yeah, and we actually
I know.
started this whole thing because Newbie Park, you know, we think it's the redheaded stepson, and it needs attention, it needs public buy-in. And so we're trying to do things there so that people,
But the
No,
train things at Newbie Park?
No.
no, that's,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
we had, our community event was a creek cleanup. We were just going to clean up the park, plant 2 trees, and call it a community event. So the people there know that we care about the park, and we're trying to solicit input for them and make it a good place for them to go. So, you know,
that was
that's our
planned
goal here.
For October 1st, or I'm,
No, we weren't going to do it on October 1st. We were going to do it another day. You guys selected October 1st. We already committed October 1st to Drexel Lodge. So all resources are already
Yes.
there. We can't do our 2
No.
events
no,
in
no,
the
I
same
realize
day.
that.
That's not possible. So now our community day of a stream cleanup, we can't do that with you guys and the tree planting. Unless, you know, unless you
that
guys
would be
want to
the
do that
Newbie
as
Park.
well. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody's going to have to head that up. I will not have time October 1st, and no one here will either.
no, I've already told two of the EAC members that they're on deck for that.
Okay,
And we're reaching out to Shade Tree. We're hoping will step up and help with that.
but so,
I guess the reality is, we need to plant 1,000 trees, and it's never going to be convenient. It's never going to be easy. How are we going to accomplish the goal if we don't, you know?
and I
And
know
that's the
that's,
problem.
I know that's the community's goals and all of our goals, but our goal was to
I
have
know.
a
And
community
it-
day
yeah,
event.
that's
so
it.
that
And that
people
is such a
know.
phenomenal event, and that will be well attended too. Hopefully, what I can say usually is these morning events, planting are 9:30 to 11:30. So start your concert at like 12:30 at least. That way
Well, how about if we just do we'll do a stream cleanup in the spring,
Yeah, you can do a stream
Okay.
cleanup another time.
a park cleanup in the spring.
Yeah,
You guys just-
I'm sorry, we didn't know you were doing that, and I guess that's one of the reasons that Steve wants to have these volunteer leader meetings where we.
I mean, it is what it is. What you're
Yeah.
doing is important, so.
Put your calendar, we have to have one calendar so
Yeah.
everybody can get things sorted.
So the thing I would ask is that you try and solicit as much neighborhood help from that small community as you can, and I will help you with that as well. So that they're there that day, so that they know that this township cares about that park and them.
Yes.
and Want it to be
Yeah,
a
we'll
successful
blitz
park.
the neighborhood.
So
Yeah,
in
well, and
closing-
that's one of the reasons when Joe said that he wasn't available those other dates, I said, well, we want the neighborhood to be there.
In closing, so that again will have to be on your agenda and we can sort that out. One thing that we got, which is another budget item for you to consider for 2023. If you recall from all the information we received from the newbie residents, bat boxes were a really important thing for the residents of Newbie Park. So if you can consider that on your budget request considerations,
For 2023.
we've got a couple, I know you can't do everything.
So one of the things that we have also, I guess, and you guys should probably hear this, is the Eagle Scouts. There's a lot of projects, I think, coming up. And if anyone has any ideas at all, that are good for the community, you should probably reach out to them. I think George's son is up this year or soon.
Yeah, this year. Well, and the scouts as a general rule, I mean, they've done bat boxes. And they've done, because the bat boxes over at Brookside are all scout constructed. And they do those kiosks. Those are, they try not to limit themselves to those, but you see the number of kiosks and you see the number of bat boxes around. They're popular. So, the local scout troop does those things. If Park and Rec has ideas of where some of those things would be good to go in the future, we can kind of have them ready to go if a scout comes to us and is looking for it. And again, we do get scouts from outside of our immediate area. I mean, we get scouts from Broomall and Radnor that ask if they could do something in town here too.
And it doesn't just have to be bat houses or bird houses either, right? It could be.
Need the total project, whole and everything together because. All right, last thing, guys, I have sheets for everyone to take. So if I can give you all the activities in August, if you can take some, George, can you take some for all the kiosks? Yep, these are the official ones that we can get out. So let me give you, and then if anyone else can help me get these out because it's really important.
I'll send this information out. It's signage. Custer wants to put it up.
That's the general one.
John Custer wants to put signage that it serves, talking about the history.
Okay.
It's a little long.
Excuse me.
It needs some sprucing up. Well, a little better.
Tightening up.
Today's people out there.
Yeah, not gonna sit there and read.
Yeah, I mean, it's well written for us. I don't know that a 20-year-old's going, oh,
Much
Okay, we're good.
information.
Okay. Wade, I'm just thinking about your community day. Can you tell me more about what your ideas were for that?
so it was just going to be, a regular
Stream
stream cleanup,
cleanup.
if you will, but more park related because there's not much of a stream there. So
Yeah,
I was just gonna have donuts and bottled water and knock on doors and put flyers in the mailboxes or to spread the word somehow that have people come out and clean up the creek. Just so that, that community is involved with that park.
yeah, because I'm thinking, could we, this is going to happen October 1st. And could you do something again, like, I don't know, in November, like after it's all planted?
we
Invite them
could,
down
yeah.
for a tour and say, come on down and let's show you and refreshments. This is just for you because it's your park and we want to show you. So it wouldn't
What
be
we
as
did,
much of
right.
a work day as,
Right
You
at that time, I think that's the only two things we really have are the October 1st Railroad Museum event and then our stream cleanup for for that. So maybe we could just make it October 7th and after it's all said and done. Show people, you're right.
Yeah, or
Right.
something like that. So,
All right. I owe you guys a bunch of information. I'll send it out.
Okay.
And I guess. Items for the next agenda. Does anyone have any items for the next agenda? Thank you, Sheila, for all you do for us. You're invaluable. I don't know what we do without you.
Well, put me on the agenda next month.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I've had a rough 4 weeks.
Sheila update, right after George.
Yes.
Right after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right after the Pledge of Allegiance, Bill said.
You guys, I think also for the talks too, we all have to remember, day tree. Make sure you take responsibility. You always have to work, you defer to them as well. We're all on the same road, like, you know, when they know these, you know, I'll push it along, you know, the goals, but we have to help everyone to make.
You sure we don't need a full-time park manager?
That's what George is. He says that.
Man
He
of
wears-
multiple talents.
Wears many hats. Yes, he does.
I think the grant writer is.
My best part of George is when they kind of jury rigged something like the urinals were broken a couple of years ago and they glued them back together somehow until they get a good price on the new one. He does save us money, I'm telling you. Saves us a lot of money.